so it kind of skews that percentage for first quarter because she will not have that expense the remainder of the year.
And
so it's a little hard to look at.
And I believe it quickly, looking at this, you know, quickly, it seems that the miscellaneous budget is probably the only other one that goes over 30 from the way I'm.
Right. So I think in those two cases, actually, that's for the same exact reason.
And that makes sense, but I think it's just good that we have this discussion so the public, the press, everyone's informed, well, and so they're not able to sort of just pull this out and, you know, and claim that the county in your role or in our role is not paying attention. So I think it's good to take note of that. That makes perfect sense with respect to miscellaneous, that you could post something that's an annual event, and obviously that is going to skew a quarterly statistic. So
Correct.
I think just paying attention to this and having a discussion is helpful. Thank you.
See, to the CEO first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of emails from our General Services Director who's listening to us through the airwaves. One, our garage billings are always 1 month behind at this time of year, so it does skew the way it looks because our revenue projections are down. Also, her use of extra help was higher in this first quarter because we did have a shortage of mechanics, and we've now are making progress on solving that position. Overall, the garage budget is solvent, and I think we'll be on track to meet our budget projections for the year.
Supervisor Pinches.
One of the other one that really sticks out is the miscellaneous budget. First of all, I really have a problem with having $2.5 million worth of miscellaneous expenses. I think that's a little bit beyond. I'd like to see it in the next budget process, a little more detail in what's included in that miscellaneous budget. But apparently most of the stuff in the miscellaneous budget is pretty much like memberships and things like that are pretty much set, so I don't know why it's headed to be so far out of budget. Is it for the same reason that different things, or has there been some revenue shortfall or an unexpected major expense happen in the last 5 months or last quarter?
I can answer that. I can answer that, or the auditor can give you more detail on it, but I stated it in my comments that the reason why the expenditures to date for miscellaneous is at 42.48% is because there's a trans admin fee that's posted at the very beginning of the fiscal year, which kind of skews the number up.
Well, that's one of the problems with the miscellaneous budget. There's so many different things in the I mean, it's not like a group of things. It's a whole bunch of different things just thrown into miscellaneous. It seems like it should be a little more detailed out. That's a personal gripe of mine.
Okay.
Because when you get into $2.5 million, it's really not miscellaneous.
So I listed in the summary recap in the comments the ones that I felt that needed to be reported out with explanations. And the board, if the board so desires, I can go through these, or if you would just like, you can read them at your leisure and ask questions maybe later if you would like. But they're there for you, and I can answer any other questions that you have at this time.
Okay.
Questions.
Thank you, Jennifer. Supervisor Delaware.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just have a bigger issue question. When the CEO's office asked departments to refrain from unnecessary travel and extra help expenditures when we were dealing with the cash flow issues, how well was that received? Did we have departments, I assume, cooperated quite well? Did we have any issues with that?
Well, during the proposed budget, we did ask, as part of our budget instructions, for overtime to be looked at and
I mean,
travel
just
expense.
A month or two ago, cash flow issues.
Oh, cash flow, okay.
Yes. A request went out from the CEO's office for departments to refrain from unnecessary travel, extra help, expenditures for another month or so to help with the cash flow issue. My question is, how well did departments respond? Did we have any bumps in the road in that regard?
Meredith Ford, Auditor Controller. We had some really good response with reducing the amount of cash that went out the door. We have heard from the treasurer, though, that the crisis is over, that, and crisis, I guess, is probably a pretty strong term for that, but we are back at a point where the cash flow is fine, and things can be reimbursed now, and the bills can be processed in a timely manner. So it was very well received by the departments. They cooperated wonderfully, and we did cut back on the amount of cash that went out the door. Got us through.
Good, and I appreciate that. I know most of the departments, from what I saw, really did respond, and there were a couple cases where I felt that they weren't responding well, and that, fortunately, that seemed to be anomalies. So I appreciate those who did.
So did we.
Thank you.
Very much so.
Supervisor Pinches?
Well, I'd like to comment on that. First of all, it's really hard, you know, whether it's Board of Supervisors, travel out of county, or whether it's any departments, usually those travel arrangements are made, if not weeks ahead, months ahead. So it's really hard to get on a week's notice or something. You get a memo that says, hey, cut back on travel, when you already have your bookings made to go on to a training or something. The only effective way to do that is two things. Number one is make sure that the total accumulation of the budget year, that they stay within their travel and training budgets. And another way to address that, which I was unsuccessful this last year, is if you want to really cut